Do you know what I remember? Dot hack.
ドットハック世界の向こうに
I love JRPG. JRPGs are a great game series. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of problems with them, but I think they're absolutely amazing. I mean, there's so many of them that are so good. But the problem is that some games end up getting no attention. Whenever Dot Hack came out back in 2002, it was one of those game series that just didn't seem to just ignite people's imagination. Okay, this is the reason why I bought them. Whenever they came out, they came with a DVD. The DVD had anime on it. See, that was their big plan. What they did is they had this massive entire continuity that they're planning to set ahead around the games, around the other media, around their manga, around their anime. But that's what really sold it on me. Back in the 90s, whenever I used to buy VHS anime, you used to get like one episode on a tape. That would be around about 20 minutes long, 30 minutes long. Maybe you're lucky you'll get the Japanese one and the dub on the same tape, but you had to pay like 20 quid for it. So whenever I turned around and got to the point where they were getting free anime with random things, I always had to buy it. So I went to the store, got my copy of the first volume of Dot Hack, which was Dot Hack Infection, if I remember correctly. But they ended up coming with a DVD with a series called Liminality. So what ended up happening was that you had a video game series that had a continuous plot that ran from volume to volume to volume, which was particularly weird in its own case. But on the side of it, it actually came with a DVD that had the first episode, second episode, third episode, and fourth episode of an OVA series called Liminality. Liminality was actually a series that took place in the real world outside of the game. Now, this is going to sound a little bit weird because you have the real world inside the game, then you have the real world outside the game, but then you have the game inside the game. It was kind of like Gameception. What ended up happening was whenever you started up the game, you had to go to this main menu screen that actually let you move through your desktop, check your mail, say who was actually giving you a shout from somebody probably sent you spam, you delete the mail, whatever else, and then you logged into the world. The world is actually an MMORPG that exists within the world of Dot Hack. It's one of those games where it's you could honestly say it's probably World of Warcraft, but it's fantasy.
Hey, you made it.
General fantasy that's just more Japanese based. End up, whenever people log into that game, they created a character, and whenever you're playing through the game, you're kind of forced into the role of this one person who's actually playing the game, the world. Whenever you log into it, you have to create a character of a specific type. You end up having to go through and play it, being part of their story. So it's very forced. I mean, it's the entire idea of a story-driven JRPG, while taking place in a world where you should have all the options to do everything in your own way, that most people expect from a Western MMORPG. But I digress. The game series Dot Hack was created by CyberConnect. They're more well known for Asura's Wrath, which actually came out reasonably recently on the Xbox 360. It's one of those games that was actually all combat-y, beating the crap out of things, a lot of QTE events. This could not be any further from what that is. I mean, it's completely an early third-person perspective. It plays like an MMORPG. In parts of it, it feels like you're grinding as well. But what ends up happening in the game, that an infection happens on the system that is taking over the world. And not just the world as in the video game world, but actually it's starting to affect things in the real world. It's putting people into comas, people can't kind of come out of the video game, their planes are crashing down, things are starting to go to crap because of this one virus. So as you play through the game series, you go through the first one, the second one, third one, it goes from infection to mutation, from mutation to quarantine, and then from quarantine to outbreak, where pretty much it goes free and it comes down to you and your small team of friends that you've gathered by playing through each of the games to actually go and save the world. You could pick up the games at any point in the series, but the problem was you wouldn't have all the items and you wouldn't have all the friends that you had from playing through the entire series. That was the weird thing about it. You end up gathering friends, digital friends, NPCs that didn't exist in the real world, but it still felt like you were calling up a party of mates that you would normally go and play online with, which is particularly weird because it was on the PlayStation 2. Nobody expected to be online, nobody really had this idea that the PlayStation was going to go to online gaming. But ironically enough, there actually was a version of this that was an MMORPG. It was called Dot Hack Fragment. It came out in the PlayStation 2 in Japan. Whenever the PlayStation decided to go on to the online gaming networks, they tried it with Final Fantasy XI, didn't do particularly well because the console doesn't have a hard drive, doesn't have a keyboard, doesn't have a mouse, so they created all the peripherals to do that. But what ended up happening was whenever they created Dot Hack Fragment, the network adapter didn't really sell well over here, didn't really exist over here, and what ended up happening was the PlayStation Slim came out, and that completely eliminated all ideas of even trying to do it over here. But it also killed Final Fantasy XI, much to my chagrin back whenever it happened. The original series was 4 games long and had a the anime OVA series that came along with it in the box, but it actually had built on top of that to a series called Dot Hack Sign, then Dot Hack Legend of the Twilight, and then from Dot Hack Legend of the Twilight it went from Legend of the Twilight to GU. GU became Root. Root became... I can't even remember anymore. I think it might have been Quantum? Yes, I actually got that right, Quantum. After Quantum, it turned back around. They've got a full feature film, the CGI film that came out there recently. In fact, you should check out the trailer for it because it's going to come out over here as a DVD at some point. One little side note about Quantum, it actually is the first anime to actually be licensed out to Funimation, which, to anybody who likes anime, is a death sign for the series, but it does mean a lot more people are going to get to see it, and we will probably get a nice little collection box set of it. The Dot Hack series is a game series that I'll replay on a regular basis. I personally had to go and hunt down copies for the footage for this series that I'm going to be doing. They end up having to go and chase down copies of that game is near impossible online if you want to just stick to the EU copies. I mean, I could get some from the States, but getting the ones over here cost twice as much as they did whenever they first came out. This is the reason why it's a collector's item, because it's a game series that people remember being really good, but not enough people bought it at the time. So this is the reason why I'm trying to remind you, because if you don't remember it, then who else will?